Hey, folks, good evening and welcome to Phantoms and Monsters Radio. Thanks for joining me this evening. I want to welcome all new listeners and members to the channel, as well as first timers in the chat. Now, alien abduction refers to the phenomena of people reporting that what they believe to be real experience by being kidnapped by extraterrestrial beings and subjected to physical and psychological experimentation. Now, during these abduction scenarios, the alien beings vary in description and conduct. In many cases, as described by the abductees, there is usually a specific individual directing the procedures. The Reptoids or Reptilians in most cases seem to garner this overlord status. Now, the reptilian humanoids are also said to inhabit Earth as cloaked human beings who can shapeshift to their original form. There are several theories regarding these beings, including claims that they're interdimensional, coming from another universe or dimension. Now, regardless of what you believe, there is a consistent number of reports from experiencers who claim to have been in the presence of these reptilian humanoids, and that they have suffered because of these interactions. So to start off, I'm going to begin with this brief account where a Texas experiencer describes his encounters and possible abduction at home by reptilian beings at the age of 8 years old. The malevolence he endured stuck deep into his psyche. Now he states, "When I was 8 years old, we lived in Houston, Texas, and I saw reptilians there as a child. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. The amount of fear was worse than being stranded in the ocean on a moonless night surrounded by sharks. I woke up in the middle of the night in my room naked, which was weird because I always slept with underwear and a t-shirt as a kid. I remember sensing something was in the living room, and it felt very malevolent. I ran to my parents' room, who were both sleeping soundly. I was screaming and crying for them to wake up, and they would not wake up no matter how hard I tried. I just curled up in a ball between them, waiting for whatever was in the living room to leave. I almost forgot about this memory until around the year 2000. I was watching a documentary about alien abductions, and they were showing pictures that small kids were drawing about their experiences with aliens. Now, some of the reptilian drawings by the kids look very much like some of the pictures I used to draw as a child. And I remember in that instant, that memory. I have almost full memory recall back to 3 years old, maybe some before then. I was very interested in dinosaurs and knew almost all of them by name and even how they behaved. I remember learning to draw and write and being able to do so with both hands because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be right or left-handed. Now, the dinosaur pictures I was drawing looked like pictures adults would make. I was very artistic as well. So most of the dinosaurs were drawn, for the most part, the right way, but some of the pictures I drew of dinosaurs had mean-looking humanoid heads on them with sharp teeth, spikes on their heads, and red eyes. It always used to make me laugh, and I always wondered why I drew some of the dinosaurs that way, because I knew it was not how they looked after seeing the other kids' pictures. I remembered almost all of it. All but the actual picture in my mind of what they looked like, but I remember the fear, the smell, and the pictures I drew were of them. I also went through a 20-year heavy depression that I could not shake no matter how I tried. Many abductees had depression issues, almost like these creatures harvest the feel-good part of the life force, like we would cut off a piece of lettuce to eat from a plant. Now, these incidents occurred around 1983 to 1984. So anyway, let's get started and let's talk about these strange and unexplained accounts.
exist among us, and sometimes they win. Even the devil was an angel once. The world has its own rules, and these rules are not human. Some of us seek answers to the origin and existence of cryptids and the unexplained. Join us as we venture beyond the known and accepted boundaries. Welcome to our nightmare. I think you're going to like it.
So, before I go any further, I want to mention that this channel is made possible you by clicking on the subscribe and like buttons and by you sharing our programmer. Super chat and super thanks donations are always appreciated. You can click the dollar icon located below the chat box. The Buy Me a Coffee link is also shown below in the description. So thanks for your consideration. Now, your comments are always welcome. Tell me which accounts you found interesting in the presentation or suggestions for upcoming shows. I want to thank our chat moderators, Bernadette, Marla, Thomas, and Mike, for their commitment to me and the channel. So now, if you're in the chat and have questions, please use all caps. I'll get to each one of them after the presentation. So in this next account, an Oregon college student confronts and is warned by a reptilian human hybrid classmate. Now, the dorm staff tells him don't provoke him. It's important that you not cause trouble for him. Well, anyway, the witness states, I encountered a reptilian hybrid a few years ago while attending college in Oregon. This individual was extremely manipulative with words and dangerous with its deeds. Once I told him that he was a cold-blooded bastard after he humiliated a friend. He became very angry, staring at me with this hideous glare. He said I would suffer for my disrespect. So that night, while studying in my dorm room, I was alarmed by a shadowy figure starting to manifest. I am sensitive to energy, so I quickly started to raise the vibration of the room, and it quickly dissipated. But that startled me, so I was on full alert. So later that night at approximately 2 a.m., I woke from what I thought was a dream, but alarmed by a grotesque reptilian form on top of my body attempting to choke me. It screeched and wailed like it was taking great delight in my fear and pain. I struggled and finally threw the fiend off me. As it cowered on the floor glaring at me, I immediately knew it was the individual I had insulted earlier. It thrust itself at me. I reached for my pants on the desk chair to retrieve my pocket knife. It was choking me as I pulled the weapon from my pants pocket and toiled to open the blade. I was able to push it off long enough to slash it across its left arm and upper chest. With a howl of rage, it ran to the wall and disappeared through it. I turned the light on to fully illuminate the room and noticed blood on the knife, bed sheets, and floor. I checked myself to make sure it wasn't my blood. I was awake the rest of the night and ready to strike if I needed to defend myself. I was exhausted in the morning but made my way to class. I noticed the individual coming out of his dorm room. He had a bandage on his left arm in the same spot where I cut the reptilian. He noticed me and walked directly to me, nose to nose. He glared at me with those evil reptilian eyes. Watch your back, because this isn't over, he murmured. I walked past him and made my way to class. So later that day, the dorm staff and housing administrators wanted to talk to me. While I talked to one of the dorm staff regarding this individual, the administrator blurted out, don't provoke him. It's important that you do not cause trouble with him. The dorm staff was obviously terrified of this guy and behaved like his minions. This was startling. That same night, I felt wary of a presence watching me. That sense of dread continued for several weeks until I moved off campus to avoid this hostile individual. However, I often noticed him and his acquaintances blatantly watching me when I was on campus and in town. I know that I wasn't the only person affected by this guy, but no one would ever dare to discuss it. Many strange things happened as well, including the sudden death of 2 students in that same dorm. No details of those deaths were ever disclosed, just that they died because of medical reasons. I know others are out there who are aware of the reptilians and that there are ways that humanity can use to defend itself against them. I have been fortunate to meet several people who safeguarded themselves and family. These terrible beings are a scourge that we will continue to confront. Be safe. Now, a woman describes her time with a male reptilian. She details the physical and psychological aspects of this person and how he would meet up with other reptilians. So the witness states, I became truly involved in spirituality in 1990. I always knew that I believed in many things, but it was then when I really began to delve deeper. And let me tell you, it's been interesting. Well, in 1994, I met this guy named Sean. As an aside, I have noticed that ever since I undertook a pledge to learn as much as I could spiritually to empower myself and become my best being, certain people have been sent my way. Anyhow, Sean is my first experience with the lizard race. Sean was odd, to say the least, but frankly, that's why I liked him. He had a very dark side to him, and he claimed was in the past, and as he always tested, he was moving toward the light. However, our friendship fell away because that was not truth. He said he was drawn to me because he wanted to be of the light. I used to stand outside at night in the country and look up to the stars, basically at the starships, and call to the lighted beings to communicate with me. My deep interest in extraterrestrials was exceeded by Sean's own. Then he told me something that shocked me, and I had never at that time heard of anything quite like it. He said he has been abducted many times, but was friendly with the reptilian race. Now, let me tell you, Sean had amazing artistic skills, and he drew them for me. My skin crawls thinking about it. But what was even more odd were Sean's eyes. My mother noted it as well. His pupils were not round at all, or not all the time anyway. Quite often, they appeared like a cat's eye. And excuse his bluntness, but his male organ had two openings. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. He swore to have contact with two large reptilians as well, as adamantly stating that he met with a female and a male vampire. Now, he told me that he was part vampire, and he even threatened me with harm by vampires if I ever did anything to upset him. Of course, I was not afraid because I'm always so very protected. But let's just say his true colors started coming through. But guess what? One night, I dreamed very lucidly. I met this female vampire who attempted to attack me. The next day, Sean called me and asked if I had met anyone in my dream that night. Now, I wish I could remember the names he gave me because he had names for all of them, the vampires and the reptilians. He took me to where in Pennsylvania he met the reptilian ship. My point in telling you all this is that I'm so flabbergasted. Actually, this all goes deeper than I'd ever imagined. So a British experiencer contacted me about an encounter that she had at home with a reptilian that left her paralyzed during the ordeal. She unfortunately was assaulted during the encounter. Hi, Lon. I woke one night several years ago in the state of which I can only explain as a spasm. My body was in a rigid state. I could not move a muscle and felt like something was on top of me. I fought to get movement back in my body. I could not turn my head or move it at all. It was like I was having a fight to get control of my body. Now, after a few panic-stricken moments, I could just barely move my fingers, only a little bit. I then felt that there was more than just a spasm. I felt dirty and touched. It was a horrible feeling from deep inside me. I could barely move my toes again, very slightly. My throat felt as if it was being held. I could feel something was on top of me. My hands were by my side, and it felt like they were around my own throat, holding tightly. I was using all my might to break free of this spasmodic state. then could feel something breathing into my left ear. The sound of a growl-like noise right next to my ear. A struggling to move my head to the left like breaking free from a stranglehold. I could barely see the outline of a head, a big, long head next to my own face. As the spasm-like feeling started to wear off a tiny bit at a time, I could work out that this thing on top of me looked like a lizard newt thing. It was like a blending together all that was around it, or maybe invisible. I'm not very sure which, but I could see it clearly as the seconds passed. It was a reptilian. I growled at it, or I think I did. My mind and my body gave all it could to do so. I bared my teeth at it and could feel it could read my mind. I was swearing at it and shouting all sorts of obscenities at it. I felt violated and used. The next thing, it was quickly off of me and was standing to one side of the bottom of my bunk bed. A light came through the thin gap in the curtains. There were different shades of golden light which also had very small particles in it, like dust or small stars that moved around like little bright lights. This reptilian creature was about 6 foot tall. I could sense it was either proud or happy of itself, maybe both. I tried to sit up as best I could, and through my mind, I swore at it again. The creature walked forward and stepped into the light beam. As it did, the feet and legs vanished into the light. The more the creature moved forward towards the window, the more of it vanished. After it was gone, I felt relaxed, but I could still feel had something around my throat. I felt like I was horrendously assaulted by this monster. I woke to a bright sunny day. I could hear my mother downstairs washing up and doing housework. I lay in my bed and didn't move a muscle. I ran the incident through my mind again, and yes, I could still feel where I was held around my throat. I know this happened. My mind, heart, and soul know that this happened. For my life of me, I could not run downstairs to explain to my mother about this. Who would have believed me? How would my parents have handled such a thing? I didn't know what to do. So since that night, my stepfather has passed away. I asked my mother if she believed in aliens or UFOs. She replied that my stepfather had once said he saw a UFO near Brighton while at sea in 1960, and he swore that it was a UFO, but only told my mother this. I never told my mother about my experience, as I thought it would be too harrowing for her to hear. What do I do about my experience? I would love to do something about it. It may help, as I am being very honest. Things like this should be disclosed. An answer has to be found on why this is happening. So I did contact the experiencers. We corresponded several times. And, but, there's some more private facts behind this, which will remain private, but it's a very interesting case. So a Belgrade, Serbia resident recalls their encounter with a reptilian woman while riding on a commuter bus in the city during the Yugoslavia war period. She states, my experience with the reptilian woman happened in 1999. I lived with my grandparents in Belgrade, Serbia. I came there only to visit them in the spring, but I had to stay there because the war started in Croatia and the shells were falling on my city. I had no friends there, and I would be bored in my room watching TV, so I often took the bus around the city without a specific goal. I just wandered. My grandfather registered me as a war refugee, so I had a free ticket with which I could ride as much as I wanted. So that night, I was returning home, as always, by bus number 37. I was sitting in the part of the bus where the seats were opposite each other. A woman was sitting right in front of me. She looked attractive, in her 30s, I think. She had makeup on her eyes and mouth and a hat on her head. Something inexplicably drew me to her, so I kept looking into her eyes. She persistently avoided my gaze. She looked left and right the whole time, so our eyes really never met. And then suddenly, I noticed how, with her mouth closed, she was touching the inner part of her cheek with her tongue. That was strange to me, but I continued to look into her eyes without stopping. Then she looked me directly in the eyes for the first time. She threw out her snake's tongue and started hissing at me. Suddenly, I became completely paralyzed. My vision got darker, and I saw a bunch of black dots. I felt terrible fear and thought I wouldn't survive. I don't know how long I was in that state, but I couldn't move a bit. At one point, the bus stopped at the station, the door opened, and I somehow managed to get up and run out of the bus. I don't even know how I got home. I only know that I ran as fast as I could. For the next 2 days, I felt completely exhausted. It was like it was some type of delirium. My grandmother had to carry food to my bed. It was only on the third day that I could function normally again. That's my true story. So in this next account, an experiencer details a typical experience that he has had with the red reptilians when they enter his bedroom. He described the overwhelming emotions that are experienced during the ordeal. This occurred in Escondido, California on April 28, 2018 at around 3:30 a.m. I experienced sleep paralysis. I couldn't move and I was frozen. I started to get quiet. It started to get quiet. I lived next to a freeway. The windows are always open, so it's always loud. I'm curious about how they always find me. The last house was a nightmare. It's been very quiet here for about a year. There's a sound that is hard to explain. My ears popped. There is a small sonic boom and crackle with it, followed by, well, I guess the only way to put it is hearing the ringing of a deafening proportion. They must have been around all day. You know, when they are there because they glimmer and sparkle like a flash of light. I was seeing them all that morning walking around the property. You can call me crazy all you want, but when you have been dealing with this like I have since I was a child, you start to recognize certain glitches in the system, so to speak. There's static in the air, but it's just so draining. I can't move. Everything goes dark. It's as if you dimmed the night more, if it was even possible to imagine. I can feel myself slipping away. The feeling is like someone drugged you with a huge sleep sedative. Full force sleep paralysis. They use this tactic all the time. Most can't handle it, so they give in or get stuck in the in-between stage, as you call it, where you're completely frozen but still aware of your surroundings. Now the buzzing is starting to fade, but the feeling this time is so strong and angry. It's building, the rage. Fight or flight is kicking in. An overwhelming sense of awareness is hovering over me. Short sparkles followed by a huge shadow start to appear. I can finally start to see, but getting dizzy. My eyes are starting to focus on what I was seeing. And there it was. As I looked up out of bed, I see a tall, red, slender-toned body, very fleshy looking, reptilian looking around the head, but also had a very normal depiction of what a gray alien would look like. Humanoid body, 5 fingers, but they were very long, followed by the last 2 being shorter. Easily 8 feet tall, black eyes. The strangest thing is, though, I wasn't scared, but more worried about the look on his face when it realized that I could see it. It stood there forever, is what it felt like. Then it raised its hand and pointed at me. I started to feel so weak and tired. It walked over to me, and every step it made, I fell back slower and lower into the bed until it was directly on top of me. Its hands still its hands still outward stretched at my head. It was now looking straight at it, red face with giant black eyes staring down at me. A jawline and cheeks were so defined, very humanoid. But the brow line is what got me. Everything is very emotionless with it, but the facial expression it made was very aware of me noticing it. I don't think it expected I was going to see it. It did something to me. Whatever it does when they first appear is how it felt at that moment. This thing fought to put me down. You could see it in its face. The strangest part is that there is no fear with it. More like a comfortable friend you could always count on being there for you in any situation. Just very calm. Trust me, I know this sounds ridiculous, but for the first time in a long time, my eyes are wide open. And what's the number 33? It's always has to do with 33. They always come and give signs at 33 on the clock, no matter the time of day or night. They love to come at 3:30 or 1:33 in the morning. I hear that a lot. Not necessarily always 33 or 3, but other numbers as well. And I've talked about that as well. Now, the next account, 2 young Missouri men are walking to the one man's grandmother's house at night. They encounter a bright orange light and then find themselves in a craft with a reptilian being. Now, the witness states, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, 1988, my friend Danny and I decided to hitchhike out to my grandma's house 16 miles outside of Steelville, Missouri on Highway 8. We used to hitchhike a lot, so it was no big deal. We left from St. Louis, Missouri early in the morning going west on Highway 44. We had our backpacks, some food, and cash. We were planning to buy beer and party with my cousin out there in the woods. It was very smooth at first. We got a ride very quickly. A person took us about halfway to Cuba, Missouri, which was our exit at Highway 19. We had a long, slow period between rides, and we just walked and talked for several hours, stopping along the woods by the highway to rest and eat. We finally reached Cuba from the second ride just around rush hour. Yes, this was a work week. It was about 4:30 p.m. While in Cuba, we didn't get any rides, so we decided to walk the 10 miles to Steelville, Missouri. We stopped at a store before you got out of town, and I bought a box of Sugar Smack cereal and a big bottle of fruit punch. By this time, it was about 6:30 p.m. We were young, so walking was enjoyable. We did a lot of walking. So we just walked a few miles, and then a Missouri state trooper pulled just ahead of us and stopped. He waited for us to walk up, and then he got out of his car. He asked what we were doing on the 2-lane blacktop road walking. I told him we were going to my grandma's house. So he took us to Steelville Police Station, which was on the way to my grandma's house where Dan and I were going, so that was cool. The highway patrol officer leaves us at the Steelville Police Station. They verify our story. I told him my grandma's phone number, and they called, and she said, yes, the boys come out here to stay from time to time. So the Steelville police officer said, okay, I'll give them a ride. I thought, yes. By this time, it was 8:30 p.m. So we all get into the squad car, and the officer drives us to the end of town on Highway 8, and it tells us to get out, as that's as far as he could go. By now, it's almost dark. There was nobody on the road, and Danny and I had about 15 miles to walk to get a ride if we were lucky. Now, since it's a work week, everyone is at home, so we're walking down the middle of Highway 8, eating Sugar Smacks and drinking fruit punch. No big deal. We were thinking of walking for a while and then sleeping out in the woods and then finishing the walk in the morning. It was summer and warm. We must have walked about an hour, and it is pitch black out on the road. Cloudy skies, no moon. Almost no one is driving down the road. If they did, they wouldn't stop for us. At this time, I stopped to retie my boot. Danny yelled, "Did you see that?" I said, "No, what was it?" He said, "Something jumped over the blacktop road and ran into the woods." I said, "It was a deer." He said, "No, it jumped over the blacktop." "The deer doesn't do that. It's over 20 feet wide," he yells. He's jumping around, freaking me out. So we're arguing about this event for some time, and then we both saw this blinding orange, hot-looking glow slicing through the clouds like a knife. A hot orange glow. I said, "It's a helicopter," but it was moving very fast, plus it was going up and back and making incredible turns. We were amazed. By this time, it must have been 11:30 p.m. We may have walked 4 to 5 miles. We were not in a hurry. We still had 12 or so miles to go. But then it happened. A glowing orange light came back towards us. And by this time, it was over us. I knew it wasn't a helicopter, and a fear went through me like never before. This thing was the size of a 3-story building without making a sound. It was the last thing I remembered, seeing this huge glowing orange craft over us. So the next thing I remember, I'm waking up inside of a large glass cylinder. It went from the floor to the ceiling. I woke up feeling very calm and wondering where I was. By the time my eyes adjusted to the light, I was in the craft. I was scared then. That's when I heard a voice in my head say, "Stay calm." I looked straight ahead and saw a reptile being about 8 feet tall. It was wearing a breastplate and ankle and shin covers. He told me his name. I don't remember it. It was hard to say. I forgot. Then I looked next to me to my right, and there was Danny. He was in a cylinder too. But he was frozen in place with his arms on the glass over his head, and his fist looked like it was beating on the glass. This reptile creature told me not to worry. He was not to be harmed. I looked around the craft, and the ceilings were tall. It must have been 2 stories high, but on the floor level, about 10 to 15 feet. The walls were gold with every color of light, and it was circular, very clean and shiny. Then the reptile started to ask if I was interested in the ship. I said, "How does it work?" The reptile started to tell me 2 magnetic fields are holding back the charged plasma stream, which travels around in a ring at high speeds and high temperatures and gives the ship energy. Most of them I do not remember. It seems I understood what it was telling me, but this reptile was planning on taking us somewhere. I told him I didn't want to go. He told me I was royalty. My blood was royalty, and I would be treated like a king after we arrived. I told the reptile, "No, please take us back to the road. Let's go. Let us go." It didn't argue with me. It just nodded, and then told me I should not be back with this one. He meant Danny. The reptile was burned in my memory. The shape and color of the face and the head. It was not at all aggressive to me. The hands had 5 fingers, and they had very muscular bodies. It was standing next to a control panel in the middle of this large room about 10 feet away from me. The light was so bright, but not blinding. I could see everything perfectly. He told me about the tragic happening to the earth that is to be, but he said, "We will come for you before it happens." I had no idea what he was talking about. All I knew was I wanted off, and right now. Our backpacks were still on our backs, and I was ready for anything. His face was very bony with green-brown scales, tiny ones, and the breastplate went to the middle of where the waist would just have been with a gold belt or utility belt. It was wide, about 6 to 8 inches wide. The plate was gold and black with silver. It didn't wear pants. I didn't notice any genitals on the crotch area. It did have a short tail that didn't touch the floor. It wore ankle and shin guards up to the knees. I really did feel comfortable when they were talking with this creature. I just wanted to leave. And I remember was in a pickup truck. This old man was driving and almost at my grandma's road. He stopped the truck and spoke. "Boys." Danny and I got out and we walked up to my grandma's house. She was up because of the call earlier. She was waiting for us. I had no idea what time it was. We walked into her house and it was 1:00 a.m. in the morning. I thought it must have been 4 or 5. I told my grandma what happened, and if she believed us, she told me, "Yes, I believe you. And yes, I've seen them for a long time." So Danny and I sat at my grandma's front porch all night waiting to see it again, but it didn't show up. So years later, I started to remember more of this encounter. It's hard for me to believe this reptile let us go and didn't take us away. I never did find out what happened to our sugar smacks or fruit punch, or who the old man was. The creature most likely wanted a quick snack. I was afraid he was going to eat us. So this next account, a young British woman describes her harrowing encounter with a reptilian alien in her bedroom. She believes that she was physically violated, but doesn't know what to do. Now, I will say this. a lot of these reptilian encounters occur outside of the United States. I probably get more reptilian encounters outside of North America than I do any other type of being or any other type of phenomena, other than maybe, you know, ghosts and such and paranormal phenomena. And I don't know why that is, but it does happen. So anyway, the witness states, I woke one night in a state which I can only explain as a spasm. My body was rigid. I don't know. Was this the same one? I read this one already. I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry, but that was the last one. So anyway, if you have questions, I'll go ahead and answer them for you. I want to thank Bear Zip for their super sticker donation. Thank you very much. Robo1776, he has a question. Do the submissions ever include drawing or sketches of reptilian? And are there different types? Yeah, I occasionally do get drawings. Probably not as much as what you would think. For some reason, a lot of times people who have these encounters with these reptilians are afraid to draw them. And I have talked to people about that. And a lot of times they get the impression that if they keep thinking about them and draw them, that they will come back. So I don't know if that's the rationale behind it, but that's what they tell me. Robo1776 again. Thanks for your $10 donation. Are hybrids or mutants a cross between multiple cryptids, or is there some human crossbreeding? You know, I don't know. You know, I have talked about this before. I believe humans are a universal species. Seriously. Of course, you have all types of different races and such of humans. But I think the fact that people see these humanoid-like beings that look either reptilian or grays or whatever, probably have some association with us in the distant past as well. I think a lot of these humanoid beings or extraterrestrial beings that have the humanoid look to them are probably evolved humans from our past. Are they coming back? Is there a reason why they're coming back? Is this the reason for the abductions? It's hard to tell. But that's just my thought. But I have talked to others who feel the same way. Ryan, I want to thank you for gifting a membership. Very much appreciated. And Robo1776, do the reptilians speak foreign languages or use UFOs or just appear out of the fog? They do. Some of them do use craft. Some of them just show up in locations and don't take the experiencer. As far as foreign languages, you know, quite frankly, I don't think I have ever had an experiencer tell me, experiencer who has had communication with these reptilians or even any other type of otherworldly being, that when they did communicate with them, how either way they did it, it was always in the language that they spoke. So that's what they say. That's what they tell me. Okay, let's get some questions here. Palaquin X. In 1973 in southern Pennsylvania, there are reports of these really tall 7 to 9 foot humanoids with bright, piercing blue eyes, almost self-illuminating eyes. Have you heard anything about them? The blue eyes, I can't recall the blue eyes. Pennsylvania has had a lot of reptilian encounters reported over the years, over time. If you do have that incident, feel free to feel free to send it to me. I'd like to look at it, at the full report if you do have it. Cans Quatch. Do you think the royal family is reptilian? I get asked this a lot. I don't know what to think about these so-called reptilians that are cloaked as human beings or shapeshifters. You know, that's the whole David Icke thing. He kind of got all that going. You know, people talked about it for years and years, but he kind of turned it into a conspiracy theory. Is it possible? I guess it's possible, but quite frankly, I have never really seen any evidence of that being true other than, you know, the only reptilians that I'm aware of personally, and as far as what people have told me, are those that are either coming through portals or coming into or using craft or coming, just like with David Eckhart, that use some type of transport to move in and out of this reality and that other reality. So he also, Can Squatch also asked, can they shapeshift into human form? Well, that's the theory. You know, honestly, it would surprise me because I think most cryptids have the ability to do something like that. Now, do interdimensional beings have the ability to do that? Sure. I think just like the Mothman, I think is a very interesting example of that. I think these are actual interdimensional beings that reside on a specific dimension, maybe linear to ours, that has the ability to stay corporeal as it comes through a dimension or a gateway somehow. Possibly these beings have the same abilities. Are they related? Who knows? Dagnammit. Bishopville, South Carolina has the lizard man, the nearby swamp, Scape Ore Swamp. It's still here to this day. Has it been seen recently? I know there was an incident or supposed incident about 2 or 3 years ago where somebody said they saw it, but I'm pretty sure that was a fake. If you do get a chance, read Lyle Blackwood's book about the lizard man from Bishopville. It's an excellent book. He did a lot of very good research, and has all the incidents that are known and a few other ones as well. But it's that whole Scape Ore Swamp lizard man thing is intriguing. Yeah, I suggest getting that book. It has a lot of different things in there that, if you're interested in this subject, it would kind of answer a lot of your questions. Sir Wolf, it is said they feed on negative energy or interfere with human affairs to create trauma, etc. I think most beings will do that. I mean, malevolent beings. I'm not saying that these reptoids are all malevolent. I think they can be pretty damn grumpy. If you ever heard David talk about them, they don't particularly like humans, but it's part of what they do, and it's kind of a directive that they have as far as their jobs or their chores or whatever it is. But as far as feeding off negative energy, I don't know about that. I know other entities do it, but as far as the reptilians, I'm not really sure. Christine Lehner, are they shapeshifters? Possibly. But, like I said again, there's no way of really proving at this point. The only thing I mean, there's a lot of theories about these things being shapeshifters or some type of being that's cloaked somehow, but I don't know. Can Squatch. Have reptilians been coexisting on Earth for thousands of years? Well, if you read what David had stated to me in my book, Alien Disclosure, and some of the interviews I'd done with David over the years, they seem to have been around Earth or within our plane of existence for quite a long time. They seem to know a lot about us, but that being said, I think there are other reasons as to why they feel compelled to us, because I think, for one thing, they are related to us at some point, and I think most human-type species or humanoids are. I've got a lot of different theories about the actual reasons behind that, but I think they've been around quite a while, to be honest with you. Shorter book. Have you read the Certiphiles line? What do you think? I have. I have posted about the Certiphiles. I don't know what to think about that. I read a lot of different theories about it. I think most people think that it may not be factual, that it's not everything's being told about what had actually happened. I'm not going to go into detail about it here, but if you go to, if you search it on Google or even search it on my blog, you'll find it. I did write about it, but it's basically a series of interviews with this reptilian or extraterrestrial being. I don't know what to really make of the Certiphiles. It's interesting, but just like a lot of these claims of reptilians who have communication with humans, it kind of leaves a lot to be desired. Let's put it that way. Jose Sanchez. As you say, Lon, a lot of these humanoid cryptids seem to share some percentage of human DNA, or at least have had a historical lineage with it. Yeah, I believe that's true. Maybe one day we will find out, but I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, Shorter Cook mentioned that there's quite a few remote viewings, especially from Farsight, that deal with reptilians. I have attempted it myself. Maybe Delise, you and I can talk about that at some point, or I'll be coming up with a case you can look into as far as reptilians. If I do get one I think is worth looking into, we'll see what we can do. Maybe you might want to even do with David's case, but quite frankly, me and, when I tried to look into David's case and do some remote viewing with that, we were always blocked. We'd get to like the third or fourth phase, and we'd get blocked off. And I think we tried 3 or 4 times. Now, that was back in 2012, the last time we did it. So I don't know if if we'd be able to do it or not. Christine Lehner, where are those mostly found in the U.S.? Oh, it's all over the place. I have sightings a lot of different places. It's nothing specific as far as location. We do get a lot of them here in Pennsylvania. I will say that. Why that is, I don't know. But Florida, we've had several in Florida. But it is interesting, like I said before, that Great Britain and other European countries, they do seem to get far more reptilian cases than any other otherworldly beings, which I find fascinating. Why that is, I really don't know. Dagnammit. What are your thoughts on people seeing reptoids in the superstitious mountains? There have been a few accounts about that. There's supposedly an underground base there. I posted today on the blog about underground joint human and alien bases or supposed locations. I think the Superstition Mountains were in there, but as far as that goes, I don't know if it's a military installation or even joint bases, some type of joint base. But quite frankly, there have been several reported reptilian sightings around that area. There's no doubt about that. Daniel Garcia, I've heard many times some of the reptilians stay in the military base under the Denver airport. Well, there's been talk about that. I've written about that as well. I do know of 2 accounts where people have stated they have seen them in the lower reaches of the airport. You know, that airport is weird anyway. There's a lot of strange signage and symbolism associated with that airport. But as far as actual reptilians, I don't know if that's true or not, but there are a lot of rumors about it. Sir Wolf, have you ever heard of a positive reptilian experience? Positive with absolute no malevolence? Very few. There may have been 1 or 2, but very few. You know, there's one woman, and I forget her name, who said she actually had relations with one of these things years ago. I don't know. You know, I don't know what even happened, how that ended up, but they're very few and far between. Shorter Cook, they say there are reptilians down in Antarctica. Any thoughts? It's possible. You know, Antarctica is still an enigma to all of us. You know, I'm not saying it's a good thing that maybe the ice is melting back and we can see further into the landmass, but maybe we'll find something at some point. But at this point, I really don't know what to think, if it is or not. Jose Sanchez, look at the pale crawlers, for example. Do they resemble humans, albeit more creepy in different same proportions? Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, humanoid species of all types, are they races, species? You know, could they be, you know, some type of connection with humans on Earth humans? Or these human-like creatures, evolved humans that reside in other planets, galaxies, even universes? You know, there are theories about it. I think it's a possibility, but don't know. Hoskins Bob, always a pleasure to hear from you, Lon. Excellent. Thank you. Well, I appreciate you being here. Very much appreciated. Tyler Guerin, Lon, have you heard from David recently? Hopefully he's doing well. I haven't talked to David. It's been a while. It's probably been 8 or 9 months. David's a pretty busy guy. He's a construction, he has his own construction business. He has several contracts. He has contracts with the U.S. Air Force, quite frankly. They're at Eglin Air Force Base because he lives near Pensacola. So he's been working with U.S. Air Force for many years. But he has several contracts and has been doing that for a long time. But he is a busy guy. I'd try to give him a call one day. If I ever go down to Florida, maybe I'll stop by. Christian Lehner, are they relatives that visit us? Like I said before, it's very possible. Yeah, Pamela Stonebrook is the name of the woman. Paranormalism Net posted it up there. Jose Sanchez, there are cases of young Brazilian men being seduced by female ETs, so I've read. It's not just down in Brazil or down in South America. It's, there's even been some cases come out of the Far East and China and other places as well. They make for good stories. If they're true, I really don't know. Reptilian seduction, I guess. I don't know. Okay, folks. Well, lots of questions, and I appreciate you coming in. Thanks to each and all of you for watching and chatting. If you donated, yeah, it's really appreciated. It keeps us going here. Please like, subscribe, and share as well. And if you do have a sighting or encounter report that you'd like to be considered for the show or posted on the blog, just contact me at lonstricklerfamsmonsters.com. So, until we meet again, and that'll probably be next Friday night. You have a good weekend. Stay safe, and I will see you then. Take care.